what's up, everyone? Let me get this thing right. Hope everyone's doing well. Please let me know if you can hear me. Live from the Netherlands this time. Cold AF, but I don't mind the darkness for a while. I'm just gonna hide my camera probably because I'm on a widescreen here and you cannot really see this thing properly. But please let me know if you can hear me in the chat. What I want to do today is a little bit of high time frame analysis. So we're going to dive into the high time frame picture of Bitcoin, what I'm looking at, where I expect this thing to go, and then we'll drill down into the lower time frames, which we have been acting on quite a bit, or active quite a bit, because obviously Bitcoin has been in a pretty tight range. It's been going up, but it's upward consolidation. So we'll dive into that. But like I always say, to understand where we're going, you have to understand where we came from. So that's what we are going to do. So let's dive into high time frame analysis. And for this, I'm going to just shut my camera off so you can see the screen properly. So please let me know if you can see the screen. Please let me know if you can hear me. Let me double check on my end if everything is okay. And it looks like everything is okay on my end. Yeah, that looks good. All right. So let's dive into things right there. First of all, Bitcoin, extremely bullish. Obviously, I mean, if you just look at this chart, it looks extremely bullish. High time frame, extremely bullish. I don't think there is any reason to be bearish at the moment or any reason to be calling for a macro top. I do not believe it. I think we have a lot of gas left in this bull run, say until, I don't know, mid to end. I personally think the top will be in October of 2025, but I would expect this to continue for at least 4 to 6 months. Nothing on the monthly that screams bearishness, nothing on the weekly that screams bearishness, but this is where things get interesting, right? Because if we zoom out or zoom in, and this is where we're going to get, then what we see is that we have this upward sloping consolidation. And you might have seen me throw this one around for a while, and we're now at the top of this upward sloping consolidation. So the question is, are we going further up, or is it time to go further down? And to come to that answer, I want to go back to the higher time frames and do some analysis on the high time frames all the way down to the lower time frames. So first things first, what we have to understand is where we are in the cycle, right? And we are clearly in an impulsive stage in the cycle. Why? Because we had this massive consolidation right here. And now we are breaking out. And yes, this is a big breakout, but this was also a massive consolidation, right? We know this, 9 months of being stuck in this consolidation. So what happens after is obviously that you're going to have a massive impulse. I've talked about this extensively in my post and whatnot. The main thing I want to take away is that what I said early on in this upward consolidation is that same vibes as late 2023, upward consolidation where leverage traders are getting wrecked. People are sidelined and waiting for a deep pullback to take liquidity will stay sidelined, and people who bought spot around 50K and hold will win. And I shared this one, and this one, you can see that's pretty early, playing out very nicely. So if I just draw that box again, because this piece is important, let's draw those boxes again. We're going to talk about time, guys. Time is important. Let me see how I drew it. Yeah, to the bottom there. So right there, I'll even give it the same colors. I cannot stand this. My OCD hurts. There you go. That's better. So what we're seeing there is what I said is similar as what we're seeing here. And you could even, I'm just actually going to copy paste that thing because I think that's relevant. And no, it won't be that long. It won't be that long. Would be wild if it is. But, it's a very similar environment right now. Also where we came from, this very long consolidation going up. Right? And now we have the same thing, very long consolidation going up. And this is where time is so important. And I always advocate, look at time. No one's looking at time, but you got to look at time. Time is really, really important. And the way I look at it is as follows. I think I still have it here. Yeah, there we go. So if we start with this one right here, this was a consolidation, right? So if we take the consolidation, how long did it last? Well, this whole consolidation was more or less 219 bars. So 219 days. And this whole consolidation until the breakout was 251 days. So this consolidation was not only longer, it was also deeper, as you can see, even without pulling anything. And this one was also deeper. Oh, sorry, this one was not deeper. This one was shallower and shorter. So you could expect that the impulse that comes out of it is going to be more explosive than this one, which aligns also very well with where we are in the cycle, which in my belief is, somewhere in the last year. Let me just quickly jump. I think my chat might not be completely working. I'm getting notifications, but I don't see anything. Let me just test that. Test. All right, well, it works. All right, so that's the main premise. And then the question is, okay, where are we now if you take that in the relation to the breakout? So what I like to do is I take the market structure, and the market structure, which I've been advocating for a long time, which is also why I said here, why I never flip bearish. Even here, I posted here, market structure is bullish. And the reason why is this weekly right here. I've been marked out. So you have this market structure, and let me just, maybe I'll get back to them later, hide these. So you have this market structure on the weekly, right? You have a weekly low, put in here, you go down on the weekly. Then you have a weekly high, put in here, weekly low, put in here, weekly high, put in here, weekly low, put in here, weekly high, put in here. So where we're obviously in right now is in the impulsive stage of this weekly trend, right? This is a weekly uptrend because we have higher highs, higher lows. And the question is, how long is this going to take? Well, if you look at this like this, you can see we're already probably getting into pretty extended areas. It doesn't mean we need to have a massive retrace. As you can see here, that could be in the form of a very shallow retrace. But we can be more specific. The way I measure these things is literally looking at, okay, where did we start this impulse from and how long did it last? So from here, from the start until the end, what we can, and this gives you a very good idea of where we currently are. And this is also the reason, so I'll just take you through this, I'll just do it again. If you look at this right here, this was the first time we started consolidating. Right there. This is the first time we started consolidating out of that impulse, right? This is when we put in the bottom. From there, you could see price was starting to move its way up. Here we have a similar thing. So what we can simply do is take the bottom of that impulse, which is what I like to do, and look at, okay, so this is why I called this bottom, because I saw that we're reaching that same area, right? And this was the first sign of weakness right there. Let me actually, right here. So I think I was a couple days off. Yeah, because then we had the first, so 1 or 2 days off, because then we had the first retest, and then is when this upward consolidation started. So very, very, very similar to what's happening back then, even in terms of time, it is pretty much the same. Then the next question is, okay, when did the real retrace happen? That was here. That was 147 days in. So this is a massive impulse, obviously. 147 days from the low to the highs is when we had the first real big retracement, and we put in that weekly market structure high, followed by a move down. If we extrapolate that 147 days, we could say, well, it makes sense that somewhere here, price would put in some top. 30th of December. Now, obviously, this is a very high time frame, and there's room for deviations. There's room for deviations. So even if you deviate 1 or 2 weeks, which is pretty normal in this case, I would say, is that you have a very interesting point of interest, one that I've been advocating for a long time, right there, 20th of January. So the 20th of January seems like a very, very interesting place also in terms of time. So this impulse would, because it lines up with the idea that I was sketching, right? This consolidation was deeper and longer than this consolidation. So you'd expect an even more aggressive impulse than this, also because we're just in that stage of the cycle where impulsiveness and mania will start to appear. So to have this one this impulse be longer than this impulse is not a weird idea at all. So let's say, for the sake of argument, it lasts 3 weeks longer, which is quite a bit. Then what we're looking at is a top around the 20th of January. And this aligns with my high time frame idea, where you have a top around the 20th of January, an intercycle top. Then we retrace from there, because all the normies will start aping in on the 20th of January. They will say, okay, this is bullish because we have, the inauguration of Trump. And it's bullish for Bitcoin because he likes Bitcoin, and all those arguments. And that seems like a perfect sell the news event. So for now, all things seem to be lining up quite well for that to be an intercycle top if Bitcoin keeps going from here. So this is the, let me see. Okay, so this is the higher time frame picture, right? This is the higher time frame picture. This is what we're looking at. And it's always good to work from the higher time frame. We're in this weekly bullish impulse. We know we're in the impulse stage, right? There's no denying we're in the impulse stage. Anyone who is saying that we're not yet in an impulse stage and we're going to go down and all these crazy bearish targets, they're in denial, they're sidelined, they are farming engagement, whatever, but they're clearly not seeing what's right in front of them, and that's that we're very impulsively up. Now, Bitcoin does seem to be accelerating right now. So let me dive into the thing on the lower time frame, which is the thing I started with, is the question of, let me check where it is. Is this upward sloping consolidation going to break out, or are we going to retrace? So at the start, or at the end of last week, somewhere here, and I also posted this on X, is where I said, okay, we're probably going to go up, because you can see that the rotations, how they happen in this consolidation. This is a consolidation, right? People don't think it's a consolidation because price keeps moving up, but it is a consolidation. It's just an upward sloping consolidation. You have to understand that the purpose of a consolidation is to fuck people over. And this is fucking people over, right? Because people are impatient, they're longing too much, and they're shorting too much as well. I mean, I would definitely not suggest shorting this. And basically, they're just getting chopped up all over. I mean, this was, I think, the biggest liquidation event in history. It doesn't happen when price is just going up, because then everyone is winning. In this case, that's not happening. So price keeps going up. And the one thing I was looking at, okay, if you look at the rotations right there, then you can see, this is a rotation to the top of the consolidation because it's upward sloping, a rotation to the bottom, rotation to the top, rotation to the bottom. And then I said last week that now we're looking for a rotation to the top at the middle of December, which is so far what has happened. And I have this on Twitter, right? I mentioned it last Friday right here that I think this would happen. But then the question becomes, does it mean that we short now? And the answer to that is unequivocally no, we're not shorting. I mean, I would not do it because of the high time frame picture I just painted is very bullish. Let me just quickly jump in. Yeah, guys, I think my chat's not working either, or I'm just getting false notifications. I'll open up a separate screen there. Wait a minute. Wait 1 sec before I go into this. YouTube Studio. Just opening the chat in the separate screen because I don't think my streaming service is giving me the chat. All right, now I have it on. Yeah, there we go. All right, now I see the chat. Indeed, my streaming service. What's up, Caliban? Now it's working. I logged in and it's working. Amazing. Thank you. Let me also see if I can fix that on Twitter. All right, now it seems to be working. Now it seems to be working. All right, what's up, Kaiban? Billy Bock, good to see you. So let's continue. So the question now is, okay, does that mean we're going to short? And I would say no, and I have a couple of reasons for that. A, because we're just extremely bullish. If you guys cannot properly see my screen, let me know. I can just shut off the webcam like this, and then you can see it better. But A, we're extremely bullish on the higher time frames, and we still have a lot of room left to go. I personally think, if I would have to make a guess, that this until the 20th of January, I think there's a good probability of high time frame upside, right? Until the January 20th still seems like the most logical and most obvious play. I almost think it's too obvious. but let's find out. So that's one thing. Go to the weekly, extremely bullish. So all the things we just discussed, I wouldn't get in the way of that. Then there are some lower time, even on the lower time frames, because the one thing I want you to understand in upward consolidations, what I always see, and I've said this before, is that you can also see this in impulses. We can go into that as well. What you always see is that the side that's in control is taking longer for their rotation. So this is a bullish rotation to the upside, and you can see it's taking longer. 94 bars, I'm 2-hourly bars right now, versus 50, 99 versus 65, right? So the downward rotations are taking a shorter time, which means they're also more difficult to catch, right? Difficult to catch the top. It's also difficult to catch somewhere in the middle because you just have less time to get in. Whereas in the bullish rotations, you just have more time to find an entry. Right here, you could have entered here. Here, you could have entered here. Here, there was still an entry here. So, whereas here with the shorts, I guess this could have been one, but that's not something I would chase personally. I'm just personally very much in favor of not shorting the bull market. Then there is even another, let me get that one out. There's another very good reason not to short, and that is if we take out this Monday high right there. So if we take out this, and I expect it to happen, and I just don't see a reason why we wouldn't take it out. We're already very close. So if we have to take out the Monday high, what happens is that we have the Monday low on Monday and the weekly low on Monday and the weekly high on Tuesday. So weekly P1 on Monday and a weekly P2 on Tuesday. If we go to the statistics, let me just load that up. What we can see on the weekly time frame is that, in general sense, 82.8% of weeks put in the P1 on Monday. So that means that if you put in if you take out the weekly high, then the only weekly pivot that can still be a Monday is the weekly low, right? The weekly high can then no longer be Monday. So this then has more or less an 82% chance of holding. But not only that, if you take this and take only less than 0%. So that what I'm doing now is I'm looking only at bullish weeks. So I'm asking, okay, what is this data for bullish weeks? Then you can see that this value is going to be even higher, even more so. Of the last 30 weeks, 92.9% of weeks put in a weekly P1 on Monday, which is absolutely insane. Crazy. And you can see that here, especially if you go to the distance page. And this is where we get to the next thing. If we go to the distance page and we do the same thing, and we select only bullish weeks, so this is basically me selecting only bullish weeks, then here you will see an overview of when P1s were put in the last weeks. All weeks, and we just see Monday, right? So these are bullish weeks. So the last time we put in P1 on another day than Monday was it Thursday, and it was July 22nd. The time before that was March 4th. The time before that was January 22, which means that this whole year, we only had 3 bullish weeks that did not have a P1 on Monday. So long story short, if we take out this weekly high, and I do think we are going to take out that weekly high, then this one is safe. Not only that, if we then look at this, we see that the current displacement between the weekly low and weekly high is 4.4%. So this displacement is 4.4% right there. And we can see that 79.5% of weeks have more displacement than that. 79.5 is absolutely massive. So that leads us to follow up with another conclusion, that if we break this high right here, then this low is safe. And not only that, we should see significant more displacement, because there is just another real, it would be very rare to do this. Very rare, right? That almost never happens. If you look, that would be like, I don't know, let's say 5% occurrence. If you do 2 more percent, let's say 5% occurrence, that would happen. So that's also very rare. Moreover, if we would get, I guess that's reason enough. I think I don't want to make it too complicated. There's one more reason I'm looking at. And that is if you would extrapolate this one right here. So say we do get a rejection, then this would most likely have to end by the start of next week. And we just know that that's not going to happen. Because if you do this, there, you take it a week to high, there's a very low probability of taking down that low and going down, just statistically speaking, right? So far we're bullish, but I wouldn't short this because of all those reasons. At the same time, I obviously wouldn't long it either, because there is obviously we're in very premium areas of this range. So what could that look like on the high time frames? Well, if we do continue higher, then I would just expect this same impulse to still be looking for a high, which I talked about at the start right here, that we're in this impulse and that we're looking for a high to be put in later on. That doesn't mean it's up only until January 20th. What you could also see is, something like, I don't know, something like this, some more stalling, and then something like that, or even something like this, top, and then another top, and then down for a proper retracement. Get everyone that gets in at January 20th because they think it's bullish, shaken out immediately, punish them all, and then continue going up. So something like that is something I think at the moment is not an unlikely scenario. So that's for Bitcoin. And the question is, what for altcoins? Well, altcoins are not looking too great right now, or at least they're looking good, but they're not looking as good as Bitcoin. I guess that's a better way of saying it. You can see that as well from Bitcoin dominance, which has been increasing a bit again. And I don't think this is a weird thing, because people are being very, very, how do you call it, impatient with alt season. If you also look at the previous alt seasons, let's do some analysis on that later on maybe. But for me, if you look at ETH Bitcoin, which is obviously pretty much Bitcoin dominance but reversed, we had an 805 days downtrend, and technically we're still in a downtrend, right? So, oops, let me fix that. 805 days of a downtrend is not just going to V-shape reverse up, right? So I think people now got a little spoiled because we had like a mini, not even alt season, this is just alts, and now people think like, all right, now it's alt season. Man, how do you call this? A bottom like this will take time to form, right? It's not just gonna V-shape reverse. I just don't think that's a reasonable thing to assume. So, even if the bottom would form like this, which would be fast, right? Which would be very fast, you're still talking about. Oh, why is that doing it? You're still talking about a 20-week, 18-week bottom. It could be a bit faster than this, but you're talking about a very, very high time frame. So patience here is the name of the game. I do think that right now it's still Bitcoin season. There's altcoin season definitely coming closer. I have had this vertical area on my chart for a while for the reversal, which aligns nicely. So what you could see, is maybe even something like this, and then the reversal here, and then later on in the year, the real alt season starts. And the real alt season will probably start in, we could have like a mini alt season already in January, maybe. And then the real alt season later on in the year, right? Probably around the summer. So, because you also have to remember that last time, if you just overlay the Bitcoin chart here, this is the Bitcoin chart. Look at where the last real alt season was, right? So this was where alt season was, the proper alt season, where Ethereum really went ballistic. It was in April, and it was already when Bitcoin was at this enormous high right there. And after that, obviously, maybe Bitcoin dominance would be even the better one to put there. But it was definitely, this was the start of alt season. Yeah, it's more or less the same. So this was definitely the start of alt season, which was, if you take that in the current cycle, you're not looking until February or something, right? So there is time there, because last time you can see how far Bitcoin was already. We're already pretty much at all-time highs. I don't think Bitcoin has to be at all-time highs this time. I don't expect it, actually. But if I would say, where are we now? Like if you consider, this point in price, where are we now? I would say we're more or less somewhere, probably around here somewhere. Right, so we do still have some time, and that aligns with the vision that we need some time for the bottom to form, and after that, alts will start performing well. But I would give it a couple of more months before we even start looking at alt season. Maybe January the first mini alt season. With February, March, I would expect first proper alt season. Until then, Bitcoin season. And I think it's also in a sense a Max Payne scenario, because so many people are looking at altcoins and are not underexposed in Bitcoin. So for that, patience on alts. This thing is loading. And with that said, but that doesn't mean that alts will not do well, especially if Bitcoin keeps going up here. Then the question is obviously what are alts going to do? And I think it's best to look at a couple of assets. There's obviously ones that have been performing extremely well, like, I don't know, Aave, CRV. Well, they've run. I wouldn't look at those. But if you look, for example, Ethereum, the question is, okay, are we going to break out here, or are we going to break down? Judging from all that we have discussed in the previous video, if Bitcoin breaks that Monday high, chances become very high. And let me just set an alert there for Monday to break that Monday high, or Bitcoin to break that Monday high, which is really close. Continue anyway. Guess I'm on lock mode. Let me switch. Let me get these off. There we go. So if Bitcoin breaks the Monday high, then I would think that Ethereum is finally going to break a 4K level. This is the last really big resistance, in my opinion. I think after this, it could really start accelerating. So the question now is, okay, are we going to break that or not? Well, if Bitcoin breaks it, it could be, because then we're going to see continued upside. And even if Bitcoin doesn't break it, say Bitcoin reverses, I think there's a good probability Ethereum will see continued upside, because Ethereum has been so strong. That doesn't mean I would long this. I would not long this, right? We're at 4K resistance. What's up, Trader Tim? How are you doing, brother? We're at 4K resistance. There's no long to be had here, but at the same time, price is extremely bullish for the time being. So there's also no short to be had here, at least not without confirmations. No, don't see. This was a great recovery after that potential topping formation. So, Ethereum is also in the middle of no man's land. But if you put a gun to my face and say, what's it going to do? I would say, well, in that case, I'm just going to say it's going to go higher. And the reason for that is also nicely seen here. Let me just share that with you. Once again, in Bitcoin. So if you look at what Ethereum has been doing compared to Bitcoin, ETH/USDT, in this consolidation, because we are in this consolidation, and then we put our cycles on, right? So look at this. This is where it becomes interesting. So here we had a downward cycle, and we see ETH held very well. Upward consolidation, more or less. Higher lows, higher highs, more like, well, kind of like a triangle. Then during the upward burst of Bitcoin, Ethereum was going up as well. Then here, during the downward burst, Ethereum was going up even more, right? So Bitcoin went down here and Ethereum went up very well. And here, once again, and this is the best time to buy. You can see that, by the way, that this is just such a great time to buy. Also, if you put Solana on there, you will see that as well. Here, let me put that one on. Here you can see that if you get to retrace, that's why I would not short this for all the reasons I've mentioned. Rather, if it would go down, I would prefer to wait for the retrace to happen. So say the retrace happens, say we're not able to break this Monday high, which is, in my opinion, the only way we can have that retrace. Say that happens and something like this happens, I would not short this. I would wait for this to play out, for price to move that, and then you buy this bottom. Because if you see at the end of these downward rotations, let me try to make that a little bit more clear. At the end of these downward rotations, so this is the end of downward rotation, end of the downward rotation, which you can time by looking at, more or less 34-hour bars. if you just hit the bottom around that zone, then that's a great time. So if that retrace happens, then all you want to do is wait for that, and you can see these zones right there are great times to buy. But right now it's obviously not a great time to buy, except, well, Solana's not looking too bad, if I'm honest. We'll dive into that. That's the first time I'm saying that in a while, by the way, because I'm not a fan of Solana at the moment. But that's the only way I would see that happen, and that's what I would wait for. But you can see that Ethereum, my point being, is even, so this is like the start of the downward rotation. So we have two scenarios. You can see here, the first half, Ethereum is doing well. Same here. So the first half, Ethereum is doing very well still. So if this proceeds, you can definitely see ETH breaking out there. But I'm positioned in ETH, and at the moment, it's obviously not a good place to buy. So in my opinion, it's just wait and see. But so far, things are looking bullish. Tim is saying, think everything will set up for the FOMC tomorrow. Do you mean set up for a move down, or set up for a drastic move up? But the really important level right here, once again, this thing loads. I don't know why this Bybit chart loads so slowly, but the really important zone right here is this Monday high, right? Very, very important. This breaks Monday high. If this breaks, let's see what the level is. 103,220 is protected for the week. Right, so that's the essence of it. If this breaks, 103,320 is protected for the week. I mean, I don't even mean breaks. Like, this is a wick is enough. Gets swept. First move up dip, and that will be your buying opportunity. Let's see. If we take this out first, then I would say that it will be, I don't know how low it can get, but I would love to see it. That's why it doesn't really matter anyway, because like I said, it's just a matter of waiting anyway. So if we do get it, say we do get that FOMC and we get that rotation, then what I'm looking for is a rotation like this. Once again, more or less, say you take that. So we just pull this one like so, and just waiting for time and price to align, right? So if then the bottom of this gets hit somewhere here, beautiful. But the one thing I want to keep in mind though is that I do think still that at some point this is going to get swept, right? But you could also do it like this, like something very drastic when people have gotten in. So that's the thing to keep in mind. What's up, Elena? How are you? Trader Tim, we have an ETH daily order block around 3750. Let me check that out. I'm assuming you mean, well, this one's mitigated. So you mean this one. Because this one, barely tap. Assuming you mean this one then. This one, because this one's too low. Yeah, this would be a great buying opportunity. This would be a great buying opportunity. But the only way I see this happening is that Bitcoin rejects. So we need Bitcoin to reject, and then we can see this happening. Wait, you're talking about this one. Yeah. Well, let's see where that is in terms of our pivot zones. Let me just take out. All right, so this is actually very nice confluence. If it were to happen this week, oh yeah, later, man. That's my fault. I accidentally put the start time an hour later. I'm sorry, but I figured if I would just update everyone that I'm live, that would be good. But my bad. I couldn't change it anymore. But so we have the weekly pivot zones here. All right, damn, look at that. That's actually confluence. That is actually confluence. Because we have that sweep of the high there. Where are other resistances? Oh, wow. Damn. You have some confluence there. And I have to say, you're right, Tim. If you grind up into this at FOMC tomorrow and reject, that's setting up beautifully for a potential move down. Because what you would then have, and so here's the weekly P1 zone, and we're going to go over some weekly P1 zones later on. What then happens is that this would be a perfect place to put in the first pivot of the week. So say this happens, then this is the first pivot of the week, this is the second. Then we're looking for targets lower on. And then look at what we have in our target zone for the week below would be the demand zone right here, the order block that Tim talked about. So that would be a very interesting play. And then you would more or less have kind of a consolidation rather than a really impulsive move, which I think makes sense because Ethereum is still very bullish. So then what we would have is more or less this, and then you could see this, and then what we would just have is some kind of range. Because oftentimes when we have some consolidation in between, or for the week, then we see that happen within the weekly P1 zone. So this is more or less what I would be looking for. Let me show you the chart. So this is more or less what I would be looking for if that happens. But preferably, once again, I would not see the Monday high on Bitcoin break to have the highest probability for that to happen. But for now, I mean, this is what you're looking for with the weekly pivot zone, guys. So now we're going to dive a little bit more into the statistics of things. If you're looking at weekly pivot zones, then this is exactly what you want to be seeing. So we're looking for confluence in our ideas. We're looking for point of interest. Obviously, there's a very big liquidity pool around here. We have that massive last point of resistance there before moving higher. That 4K, yeah, this is still good, a good liquidity point. Let me mark out the all-time high as well. But basically, this is what you're looking for confluence. So you have these liquidity points right there within the P1 zone. So if you would get here, and we've seen this act as support resistance plenty of times. So if we would get here and do this, then that is, in my opinion, a good confirmation that you're going to go lower. And then this is, more or less the target I would be looking for personally, given the bullishness and the order block and the fact that if you have a consolidating week, that more or less this is happening. And that would align with what happened last time Bitcoin, or not last time, but the time before that Bitcoin went into a consolidation where Ethereum, or went to a downward rotation where Ethereum also started consolidating instead. So that would line up nicely. But once again, I would like to argue that I do think that the high of Bitcoin must hold for this to happen, right? So if the highest probability scenario for that, if I just take another chart for Bitcoin, because it takes so freaking long to load. Get that. All right, load. Come on. Here we go. So we would want this to hold. And we're, I mean, very close to breaking it right now. Like I said, I don't see really a reason why we wouldn't, but it would be the highest probability of holding. So say this happens, I mean, then we have a much higher probability, in my opinion, of that retracement down happening. And otherwise, I would say, you know, if, like I said, if this happens, then actually, just statistically speaking, higher is more likely. But once again, I would not long that because you're at the top of this range. There's no reason to long here. Same for Ethereum, right at the top of its resistance. So no long to be had here. Also, no short. Once again, I want to say I wouldn't short. I would just be aware of this, and then if it happens, then you want to be looking for longs or buys in that area. All right. So what assets do have better? Let me check. What assets do have better stats are obviously the assets that have decreased by a bit. Solana, for example, and I'm not a fan of Solana. I do think it will still do well in terms of dollars, but I think it will do worse than, for example, Ethereum. But it is still a very interesting asset to look at because what happened is the following. You might remember that I showed this point of interest a while ago, or what was it, last week? Last week on Monday, I said this was a very nice area to look for a bounce. So far, the bounce has been very nice. The reason is because, you know, you have this SR flip right there. The SR flip, I've explained this before, but I will just quickly repeat it again. If you see price break out of this long of a consolidation, then this is not the retest, right? This is not the SR flip. People always think, oh, there's the SR flip. But no, you didn't have any distance yet, any clearance. For a proper SR flip on a high time frame level like this, you always want to see distance, right? And then if price comes back, that is the SR flip. And usually, if the breakout is confirmed, which in my case this is, you know, opinion this is confirmed, then this will give a bounce. So that's a very interesting area to look at, and so far it has given a bounce. And one of the confluences we have had for that was what I said last week, is that the weekly P2 interval was right at the edge of that, right? So we know that only 20% of weeks go down below this box, that most of them are within here, right? So if you have then this very important SR flip level, then you can be pretty certain you're going to see a bounce from there, which is exactly what happened. But now the question is, what's next? And well, first of all, if Bitcoin is indeed going to reject, which I still think is right now the less likely scenario, but say it is, because it's possible, and I'm definitely, like, it makes a lot of sense from time perspective. But if that happens, then I would not expect this to be the low, and I would expect even these lows to get swept, because Tim and me have been saying that I still think so, that these lows do not look great. They do not look that great at all from a PA perspective. It does look like unfinished business here as well. One more sweep of these lows would be a much better low, in my opinion, before going further up. So in case we do go down further, what you would look at, you know, is somewhere within the P2 zone again to look for a low to be put in and to long it from there. I'm also seeing if there is what interesting levels are there. Let's see this right here. This looks interesting. All right. Yeah, well, look at that. So this is how you do it, right? Now we have, if this would happen today or this week, let's say it's Tuesday this week, so it is possible if you see the rotation, because the rotation downwards, if we get a rotation downwards, you would expect it to be done by the start of next week, right? By the start of next week, we'd probably be done with the rotation downwards. So then if this would happen, that here is a very nice area, because you have confluence between the weekly P2 zone, which is right here. So we know that only 20% of weeks go further down than this. So you're probably not going to get there. We have this order block right there that led to a fair value gap. So this one is very, very strong. And, you know, then everything just lines up nicely. And this would be, I mean, if price gets here, then in my opinion, that's a pretty good buy. All in at 185. Is that 185? Oh yeah, that is 185. So then we're like looking at the same thing, right? This is 185. Yeah, just below it. Yeah, so it could wick it. Indeed. That's what I would say as well. because the interesting thing is, I also think it kind of makes sense. Well, there's two scenarios. Let me point that out in terms of time. In terms of time, what you're looking at. Okay, so we had this consolidation. It's pretty much the same principles we had with. Oh, wrong one. It's the same principles we had on Bitcoin. Solana breaks out of this consolidation, and what it basically is this impulse right here. This impulse right here, or this trend. This is like a daily trend, but it makes up the higher time frame weekly trend, right? So this is the impulse on the weekly, right there. So the weekly is green, weekly is green, daily is red. So we have a daily uptrend, which makes up the weekly impulse up. The question is, and that is important to answer, is this a retracement of the red? So of the daily trend, right? So is this a retracement of the daily trend? Let me make that red. Or is it a retracement of, I'm just exaggerating this, or is it a retracement of the weekly trend? The reason why this is important is that you would handle these differently. Because if it's a retracement on the daily trend, then you would expect this whole retracement to last much shorter. Whereas if it's on the weekly, you would expect it to last much longer. So if Bitcoin is going to retrace, I would be very much inclined and almost certain that it's a retrace on the weekly. Let me explain why. Because time is important. If you take FIB times, so for example, if you take the FIB time here, what basically this is showing, once again, here comes time. If this is a retrace of this impulse, you would pretty much want it to end before the one-on-one FIB time. What basically this means, at this point, the retrace is lasting exactly as long as the impulse that followed it, right? So then the retrace was as long as the impulse that followed it right here. Now, usually retraces are shorter than the impulses. So this is already really, really edging it. Like more often you would see it end up somewhere within this range, actually, right here. But still, it was right before it. So there was actually also a nice confluence of this as a bottom just before it. But if you go down from here, then obviously, this is invalidated. And you're looking at a retrace. And this would be a very, like, at max you would want to see a one-on-one on the retrace. So then the other idea is, okay, then it could be retraced on the weekly, and then things become interesting. Then things become very interesting, because the 3A2 on the time is more or less where you want to be looking at. So if you go towards the 3A2 and we put on the Monoma pivot zones again, I mean, look at that. And then we have the whole cocktail lined up. This is absolutely beautiful. This is time, pivot zones, demand zones, pretty much everything lining up. Because if we get to retrace and price does this, then once again, what I said is this is the area you're looking for, because it's at the edge of the P2 zone, right? So around that 185, 186, 187 area. You know that price would only go here in strongly trending areas or strongly trending moves, which at this point is probably not going to be the case, because the market is simply too bullish for it. All right, Tim, see you later, man. Thank you for joining. And then what you have here is a beautiful order block right there at the edge of that P2 zone. And not only that, if price would get here like this, then you have it exactly at the time where you want to have it, because you want that. In that case, this could be the bottom. In terms of time, it would be a great bottom to, what do you call it? A great bottom for the weekly impulse. So then this would be, let me mark that out. So then you're looking at this impulse to be the retrace, which I think, yeah, I mean, this would be a beautiful play. If it gets here, then really all the stars are aligning. This is like really all the stars align. I mean, no brain buy, in my opinion. No brain. Not financial advice, obviously. But this would be so clean, man. Like, so clean. I don't know if it's going to happen. But if this happens, then yeah, very, very, very nice area. I don't think I've ever seen the stars align so nicely. So that's Solana. This extensive TA on Solana. So I actually really like that one. And I've not been a fan. I do think it will underperform compared to Ethereum for a while. But still, you know, for a spot hold or spot buy, maybe not bad at all to look there. All right, let's look at some other things going on. So Bitcoin, I do think it's going to break that high as expected. I'm going to look at some other coins. And let me see how long I've been on. Just under an hour. We're nearing the end. Doge, I mean, you still know my plan. Planning to sell here. So this aligns, you know, this plan is still in play. If anyone wants me to cover my exit strategy on Doge, then let me know. But I've explained this a couple of times. I've also posted about it, so maybe you guys already know. So, let me see. Yeah, let's look at these. What's up, Vincent? So you mean a Christmas rally? Yeah, if Bitcoin breaks that Monday high, then I would say there is a. I mean, even if it doesn't break that Monday high, let's actually check that. Oh, I did it on the wrong chart. Even if it doesn't break the Monday high, then yes, I would say that the Christmas rally is very much on the table. At the start of the video, I did high time frame analysis, where I basically said, just to recap, that I do think there's a very good argument to be made that we're going to see continued upside over the high time frame, and I don't mean up only, but until the 20th of January, so the inauguration of Trump. But if you get that, then what could happen here? So if we look at the rotation cycles, so let's take this at the end. Then you see that even if we would get a temporary leg down after tomorrow, and this was the top I'm looking for, right, on this day. So if there's a retracement to happen, well, I would have preferred it to not take out the Monday high, as you know. But then here you can see retracement until 23rd of December, which would set up perfectly, actually, for a Christmas rally after that, right, where you do something like this, then go down, and then have the Christmas rally, or at least a nice little run up, and possibly, you know, somewhere topping out there. So very much could be. Could be. All right, I just want to have one more look at Doge, and then we're going to shut things off. Then I think it was a nice enough stream for 1 hour. I want to keep things not too long as well for those who cannot join in live and want to watch later. Doge, I mean, this is also one thing. You can just see it's lining up very nicely with this P1 zone of the weekly. It's lining up very nicely with the very area high of that range and the SFP level right there. So what I could see happen for those, if it gets there, is that you do something like this. And I mean, either go for the lows or just bounce there. This would not be a weird one. This would be a very, but you want to see that hit, I don't know, today or tomorrow. I wouldn't go much later. If you hit it after that, then the chances of this happening are much less. But I still think this is going to break out. I still think this is looking very good over the long run. Other than that, let's actually take one final look at Bitcoin, because we can have more of an idea if this is going to break out or not, because we can simply look at more data. Then I'm going to cut things off. Let's do one final fun exercise. So this is the last. So you know my bias, gone over it extensively. Let me just get here. Let me get the pivot zone indicator on, and I'll just check the daily and the session, turn off the weekly. I need new data for the session. So only session will be enough for now. Let me just get the data. All right, there it is, copy value. Then we'll paste that right in here, and then we have the session data. Print it. Oh, there it is. The session data. Yeah, I don't really see how this is not going to break. Right, so once again, if this gets swept, then 103,320 for the week is pretty safe. And we can see here that the current session P1 zone is this right here. So, even if you would do that, I mean, this is a very logical place to put in the weekly P1 or a session P1. But even if you do this, then, yeah. The one thing is, though, you could temporarily reject from that because we have the daily P1 zone and the session P1 zone right on top of each other, which is a pretty good confluence usually for possible rejection. Plus you have the Monday high. So a temporary rejection would be okay, but it would be limited because you have the statistics on your side that you're not going to take out this low right here. $103,320. So here again, if this gets swept, then this is generally safe for the rest of the week. And because of the distance statistics I shared earlier, pretty much 95% chance of further upside. So if this gets swept, you have a 95% chance of further upside, right? That's why I say if this gets swept, it's hard to imagine that we're not going to go higher. So this level is really, really, really important. And if price is going to continue up today, then you're looking for the target somewhere within here. Right, so between 108 and 110. Price is not going to go much higher than this, most likely, because that's reserved for only the very bullish sessions. Because right now, I mean, the day could like the daily P2 zone is higher, but given that the New York session usually does most of the displacement, I prefer to be conservative and look at the session P2 zone. We can do this for, I mean, a lot of other alts. Let's just quickly look at what alts are doing. Well, let's look at ETH. ETH's doing nothing, so ETH's just ranging. So, yeah, so this one's more interesting. So this one looks pretty good for continued upside because we have both the daily P1 right here. Well, I don't know, continued upside, but we have the daily P2 right here. What is for sure that this one seems safe. And also for the session P1, you would expect now. We see, yeah, this is actually very nice. So if you see further upside, you have now a confluence between the session P2 and the daily P2 high. So what you would expect to see is if price continues up here, then here is most likely going to be a rejection, right? It would be rare to go beyond that. Let me take these off. But for now, Solana is looking pretty good for further upside. And then once again, you're looking for targets here. Maximum here, I would say, for today, 233. I don't think price is going to go higher than that. Which other ones are doing well? Let's see. I mean, XP is just flying. XLM is flying. No entries there to be had at all. Yeah, so this one's nice. So AVAX, if you want to see further upside for the day, then you don't want to lose this, right? That's the invalidation. So with something like this, followed by further up, with a target anywhere in between here, doesn't seem like a weird play at all to me. The one thing is, though, that right now the daily P1 zone is acting as resistance. Yeah, it all really depends on what Bitcoin will do. But Bitcoin seems to be going for the high. And in that case, yeah, if it just seems logical that higher is in play for Bitcoin, and then most alts will follow. Then some of these are very weak. For example, this one is obviously weak. Maker. And you can see this as well, right? So this is a very good weekly P1. Very good. Weekly P1, weekly P2 there. But already, so what you can take away from this is that Maker is obviously performing pretty bad compared to, for example, Ethereum. We have a P2 already outside of the P1 zone. So we have, if we would have a bullish week, so if it were this to happen, I mean, it can happen, but 80% of the time, we would have the weekly P1, so the weekly low, put in within this zone right here. And since price is already out of there, out of that zone, what you can take away is that a reversal like this becomes very unlikely. So, and it also confluence with Bitcoin dominance increasing. So you really want to be paying attention to the alts that are holding well. If you have the dashboard, you can. So this one, for example, you can just clearly see that, yeah, okay, a reversal like this is very unlikely. So then you are more looking for targets lower. And what you do then, once again, is simply look, okay, well, where are my point of interest? And you can see already one right here, right? So this one would be beautiful because you have within this weekly P2 zone right there, you have an order block. So this would be a nice place to put in a weekly low. And you can also see what's going on the lower time frames, daily and session. Let me just shut that one off. Yeah, this looks like lower. Because New York right here takes the liquidity and then goes down, and this is a really good place to put in a session P1. So then what you're looking at is, I mean, look at this. So this is confluence, right? So if you would get here today or this session even, I just looked at this order block because it's in a weekly P2 zone. So if you would get here today, that's right at the edge of the session P2 zone. So you would not expect the session to go much further unless you get a very drastic move down. So if price gets here, that's a great place for a bounce because you know that, there's pretty much a 20% probability of going much further than this. So if you have this, then you have confluence between you're at the edge of the daily P2 zone, you're literally at the edge of the session P2 zone, and you have the weekly P2 zone, all the pivot zones, the weekly P2 zone also right there. So this is a very interesting level for Maker. All right, guys, I want to leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching. Just over an hour, good time for people who want to watch back later. I hope you learned something, especially, check out the high time frame analysis from the start. There's some gems in there, and I lay out my high time frame view of what I think is going to happen. So check it out, and hope you have a blessed week. Hope you have a good Christmas. I don't know, I probably won't be streaming anymore before Christmas, so want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Hope you have good times with the loved ones, with the family, friends, whoever you are celebrating it with. And I'll see you on the next stream, probably in the new year. All right, guys. Thank you very much. And I will catch you soon, man. Cheers.